So before we go any further, let me just check to make sure everybody's fine and we're not having any technical difficulties. Let's go around the room. We already heard Jim, Betty. David, are you still with us?
I am.
Gail, are you there?
I am.
Joe, are you there?
I'm there, and the superintendent's name is Dr. Pamela Brown.
Hey, now we've got it.
Now, thank you. Name? Oh, it's a very familiar name.
All righty. Are you hopeful for Buffalo?
Absolutely.
Good deal. And Mary Martin, are you still with us?
I am here.
All right. Well, we've got a good group, so we're going to go ahead and get started right now. At the bottom of the screen on the left-hand side, there is a place to enter messages to the group. So if you have any difficulty and if you happen to be on mute, or if you have a question and I haven't stopped long enough for you to ask it, go ahead and type it there, and I'll take us off mute and hear your voice at that point. What we're going to do during the next 55 minutes is I'm going to take you through the changes in TimeTrack and how it connects to the work that you do as a time change coach. So, without further ado, let me go ahead and get started. You know that TimeTrack plays an important role because the work of a SAM principal team is in stages. The first stage is to change the principal's time so they are focusing on instructional matters rather than managerial matters. That doesn't mean the management doesn't get done, and also doesn't mean that the principal isn't responsible for the management. But instead, you look for a series of people to try to do that management work first, and we call those first responders. Then the next step is that the intent is that the change of time will improve teacher practice, increase student and parent engagement, and lead to student achievement increases. You know the data here that the external researchers have shown us that we are very good on that first stage of changing how a principal uses their time. By the third year, the average SAM principal team has gained about 55 extra days of instructional time. Your job as a coach, though, is really an important one, because lots of times the team can become very satisfied and say, oh, I've gained time, I'm doing well. And it's true, they are doing well, but you want them also to do good. And so the role of the time change coach is first to help the principal increase their instructional leadership time, but then, very importantly, connect that time with improved teacher practice, student engagement, and parent engagement. And so if you look at it this way, if a baby learned to crawl and never learned to stand up and walk, you'd be concerned about that parent. And so look at yourself as the time change coach in a way as being the parent. If you have a team that has done this first step, they've increased their instructional time, that's the crawling part. The walking part is the second level, where you begin connecting that time with improved teacher practice, student engagement, and parent engagement. And then as you move from walking to running, you help the principal be reflective and effective. And so reflecting on that time, on that engagement, on that teacher practice, and help the principal be effective in improving it. So it's an important piece. TimeTrack plays a critical role in making this happen, because it provides online data for the principal to be able to use to make that decision about how the principal can be more effective. We know that the SAM process starts with readiness and then baseline data collection, or time task analysis. That time task analysis data gives the principal the information necessary to move forward. TimeTrack then becomes the critical element. TimeTrack is the tool that the principal uses in their daily meeting that tracks how the principal is progressing, first on increasing their time, and then secondly, on their work with individual and groups of teachers. The monthly time change coaching meeting, where you as a coach go in and work with a team, is obviously really important. But probably more important is the fact that you are providing a conscience, if you will, the way of helping the principal stop and the SAM stop and think about how this all connects. How does my change of time connect with change of teacher practice? And TimeTrack is a powerful tool in that respect. Then, of course, your later data collection, where you have an external data collector or shadow come in, gives you a way of checking to see if what is being reported in TimeTrack really is real. And so, again, it's another reflective piece. Here are the TimeTrack changes we're going to be looking at today. First, there's a much cleaner look to TimeTrack now. There are better print options, particularly when the principal or the SAM wants to print a one-day view of what they're doing. In the past, you couldn't see much other than the time. Now, all that information is readily available. First responders, which is a really important piece of the SAM's work, is now built into TimeTrack, as are the details of time task analysis and the history of the time task analysis. AutoSelect has three new aspects or improvements we're going to talk about. There's now a school year view as well as a TimeTrack year view. You're all aware that the TimeTrack year starts right after data collection. So if a principal starts, say, in December, has their data collection, and then starts doing TimeTrack in January, the TimeTrack year runs from January all the way to the next December. That means all the data charts are reporting that period of time. We've had many folks say they'd like to have a school year view as well, and we now are providing that. We're going to show you how you can tell what browser is being used, and that's pretty important because TimeTrack is not a software program that resides on a computer. Instead, it's a cloud-based application that you use a browser like Internet Explorer or Chrome or Firefox to access. In the past, you've been able to reconcile instructional events, meaning the day after. If the SAM says to the principal, how much time did you spend on that walkthrough, really? How many hours or minutes did you spend? The principal might say, well, I spent half the time. Well, there's been a reconcile button, so it'd be easy to show on the calendar what really happened. We had many SAMs and principals say they'd like to have that same reconcile button included for management events, and so we've done that as well. There's an easier setting for repeating events, and we'll show you how that works, and it's designed to get the SAM team to be thoughtful about why they're doing the event. Sometimes you'd have a SAM principal team almost be so focused on getting to the green that they really didn't stop to think about getting to effectiveness. And so I think you're going to like the way the repeating events are done now. Conflicting events have been allowed for a while where you could schedule more than one event at the same time. We now have an override button so you can tell TimeTrack which event to count after when you're doing that daily meeting or reconciling experience. We've included descriptor examples that are very detailed and give the team some guidance, because we found that some teams, even after doing this work for months, still struggle with what the descriptors mean. And we have a way of importing now calendar data from other calendar systems, including iCal, which is an Apple product, and then also Outlook, which is a PC product. So that's what we're going to cover in terms of improvements to TimeTrack. I'm going to take you off mute and see if anybody has any questions or comments before we continue. Any questions or comments? You are a quiet group this morning, Mary. Do you have any thoughts here before we move on?
So far, I'm good.
All right, all right. Anyone else?
Mark, this is Gail. I'm really glad to see this import.
I'll take you through the import in terms of how that works, but I'll also kind of tell you a cautionary tale about it. So let's go ahead and continue, and I will stop periodically to see if you have questions or comments, so we don't miss your thoughts here. I'm going to put you back on mute. I heard a voice there. Go right ahead.
This is Gail again. Someone needs to move their microphone away from where they're breathing.
I think you might be right. Let me go ahead and put us on mute and see if that helps. All righty. Let's go ahead and continue. What I'm going to do now and I am going to open up SAM's Connect, and we're going to go to a training calendar. This particular training calendar contains data from a real principal in Charlotte who has allowed us to use his data for this purpose. And as TimeTrack loads, the first thing you may notice is it looks a little different. It is a little bit of a brighter look. The The intent is to make it cleaner and easier to see, but there's some other major changes. You'll notice that the note sections have moved down to the bottom. That's to allow more room for notes, and also when you do a daily view, so there's more space. You'll also notice off to the right of the person's name, which is now more prominent, we have 2 calendar insets, so a person can look at what's coming up. And then off to the left, you can see the new NSIP logo. So some minor changes, but they are intended to make it easier and cleaner to look at. Let's move to a one-day view and then to see the changes are more significant. Here you'll see that instead of just saying what the event is, you can now see on the one-day view who the event is with. So anything you entered, including the time, is now listed. This was at the request of SAM and principals, who when they printed their one-day view didn't like what they saw because it was just hard to read. So we've tried to make it a little bit easier and more user-friendly in that respect. You'll also notice that there's that large note section down at the bottom. Again, that's because SAM principal teams wanted to have a place to put notes, things that they wanted on the calendar but didn't want to confuse TimeTrack and have it try to count that time. The print view has been an issue for some time in terms of how you can take what's on TimeTrack and print it and have it look good and usable. If you look at the upper right-hand corner where my cursor is, you'll see a wrench. If I click that wrench, I can make a lot of changes in what I'm looking at. You can see I can make what I'm looking at smaller or larger. I can print and get a print view that will tell me exactly what it's going to look like when I actually print it. So you see, it's a much cleaner look, and it's much more user-friendly for the SAM principal. Down in the right-hand corner, I can use these magnifying glasses to make it bigger or smaller. And so this is the first major difference in terms of printing we have done before, and you can see that the SAM principal team is given a number of options. If I look over on the far left-hand side, I'll see my print button. I just click this if I wanted to print what I'm looking at. But I also have some other options. I can change from portrait to landscape. I can also go from color to black and white. There are other options as well that the SAM principal team can use, but the point here is that the print view has changed. To get out of the print view, if I go up in the upper right-hand side, there's an X. It lights up when I put my cursor over it. If I click the X, it will close back and take me back to the calendar. So, again, to get to the print view, I go up to the wrench, click. I come down to print, click. It will print anything that I see, but we've changed the formatting so it is easier for the SAM principal team when they print it to actually use that information. To return, I go to the X, it turns to red, I click, and it takes me back to my calendar. I'm going to take you off mute now and see if you have any comments or questions before we continue. Are you going to continue being a quiet group? It kind of sounds like it.
As long as we understand.
All right,
We're
don't
good.
hesitate. You know me, I'll just talk all day. I'm going to put you back on mute now. And we're going to go to the next TimeTrack change. If you go to the center of TimeTrack, you see the person's name here, John LeGrand. And if I go down below to the left, I see a button called First Responders. First Responders has always been part of the SAM process, having the school develop a series of people who are referred to for management issues, not responsible for them, but responsible for being the first person or the second person to try to solve them, has been an important part of our work because we're trying to make the principal's job less interrupt-driven. One of the things we've changed in TimeTrack now is we've integrated the first responder system into the TimeTrack tool. So if I click First Responders, I get my first responder list right here. It's easy to use. If I wish to change who the first responder is for after-school programs, I click the white or the yellow tab to the right of that line, and instead of it being Carol Lensing, I can make it Mary Martin and click Update. In order to add a section, I can click the plus sign, and this might be Copy Machine, and the first responder might be Dave, the second responder might be Jim, and the third responder might be Xerox. And if I click Add, it will add it to my first responder list. So, getting to first responders is pretty easy now. And this is an important piece, as you're going to see in a role play we're going to do in just a moment. At the bottom left-hand side of the first responder display, you'll see a word that says Print View, or a little token. If I click Print View, I get a different look in terms of what the first responder list will look like. If I want to see how it'll actually print, where would I go? Let me take you off mute so you can answer. Where would I go if I wanted to see how it's actually going to look when I print?
Back to the wrench.
Back to the wrench. So I'm going to go up to the wrench, click Print, and now I'm going to see how it will print if I, in fact, wanted to copy this and share it with staff. Again, I have the option of changing from portrait to landscape. I also have the option of changing from black and white to color. So the first responder sheet is different in terms of how you access it now. You'll notice there's a tab up at the top. For me to get out of the print view of first responder, I have to click that little X, and it takes me back to calendar. So I'm going to close first responder, and again, to get to first responder is right below the name to the left. I'm going to take you off of mute and see if anyone has any questions or comments about first responders. All right, a lot easier to get to. Right next to the first responder button, you will see that there is now an auto select button. Auto select was there before, but there are some differences now in how auto select works. I think you all are aware that auto select is intended so when a SAM principal team or a secretary or a receptionist answering the phone looks at the principal's calendar, like we are right now for Wednesday, August 22nd, they don't have to guess as to when the principal's next available. Instead, they can just click auto select, and auto select will tell you the principal's open times on their schedule. In the past, when you clicked auto select, it would start at the beginning of the week and show you in gray all the times you missed. Now it goes immediately to the first available time. So you can see 9:20 a.m. this morning, the principal's available for 10 minutes. So that's the first big change in auto select. The second change in auto select is you've always been able to scroll down to Thursday and Friday, but then it's always stopped. Now you can click this button at the bottom where it says Get Times for next week, and it will allow you to go into Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, etc. for the following week. So those are two changes in auto select. The third change in auto select is you'll see that there's a first responder button built into the upper right-hand corner. If I click it, it brings up my first responder list. So first responders and auto select and TimeTrack are now all connected. And that can be really important because you want to make sure that when people in the school are asked for the principal's time, when a parent comes in and says, I'd like to talk with the principal, a teacher or a support staff person does, you never want to make that person feel unimportant. You can't say your concern is less important than the instructional leadership time. What you want to do instead is be a little more receptive. And that receptive piece means being able to say yes without pulling the principal away. And we're going to do a quick role play here right now, Betty Lindauer and I. So I'm going to take Betty off of mute. Let's see if I can do that. There we are. Are you with me, Betty?
I am, and I'm angry.
Good, good, good. All righty. Betty's going to play the role of a parent. I'm going to play the role of a secretary. And here we go. Ring, 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 TimeTrack Elementary School. Can I help you?
Good morning. I just wanted to talk with the principal for a moment. There was an incident with my son on the bus yesterday on the way home.
Oh, I am really sorry to hear that, and I know the principal's going to be concerned too. Is your son all right?
Yes, he's upset, and I hope that he will get past this, but for now he's fine, other than just being upset.
I am really sorry. Is this Mrs. Lindauer?
Yes, it is.
I thought I recognized your voice. This is Mark. I'm the secretary here at the school. I know the principal's going to be really concerned about this. Let me look and see. You know, I can get you in to see him at 10:50 this morning. He's not going to want you to wait, though. Here's what I'm wondering. The person who normally deals with student transportation issues is Todd Holbrook, and he is very good. And I know your son knows Mr. Holbrook. Would you be willing to talk with Mr. Holbrook right now so we can get a solution started on this? But I will save that time for you with the principal in case you need it.
Well, I would prefer to speak with the principal.
And, you know, I know he would really like to talk with you, but he would not want this situation to wait. He would want the bus driver involved, and so we can figure this out quickly. Could I have you talk with Mr. Holbrook, and then I will save that time with you for the principal if you still need it.
Okay, we'll try that first.
All righty, I sure appreciate that. Thank you, Mrs. Lindauer. I'll have Mr. Holbrook call you in just a moment.
Thank you.
Thank you. And so you see in that role play how you can pretty easily use these two tools. Now that requires that the office staff have access and be able to use TimeTrack. And we really think your role as a coach has to include making sure that the people in that front office have easy access and understand how to do that. When we do implementation of the SAM process in a school district, we make sure that that happens because it makes it so much easier to, one, have an organized structure within the school, and two, keep people from immediately thinking that anything that comes up is something that the principal has to deal with now, rather than having someone else try to deal with it first. I'm going to unmute all of you and see if you have any questions or comments before we continue.
I assume, Mark, you're doing this training with all the principals and the SAMs and the other people involved?
We do this training with all new SAM principal teams. All SAM principal teams will receive a copy of the list of the changes on TimeTrack. They're going to get that this afternoon. They'll also receive an audio-video recording of one of the sessions like we're doing right now. You as a coach, though, for a current team, need to know this information, obviously, so when you go in, you can help train and teach people how to do this. One of the things that we find is when we do training with the SAM principal team is you'll hear people say, you know, I'm really going to make sure that I train my office staff how to answer the phone, like you just saw me do a moment ago with Betty Lindauer. And you saw me do some very specific things. Validated the concern, made sure she understood the principal would be concerned, didn't tell her she couldn't see the principal, but gave her the next time the principal could talk with her or see her, and then diverted her or referred her to someone who could talk with her immediately so the situation could be dealt with. That does take some training, and you as a coach want to help the SAM be able to train the office staff if they're not already trained to do so. So one of the questions you might want to ask when you are in a SAM coaching session with a SAM principal team is, how does the office staff answer the phone? Then you might model for them how that could happen, and then ask the SAM and principal, how would you train people to do that? So to answer your question, when we start a new district like we are doing in Denver in about 2 weeks, we do a training session with the office staff, and we have an implementation specialist who stays on site for several weeks to make sure the office staff can do it. But in the end, as a coach, you want to check these things to make sure that they're actually happening. Other questions or comments before we continue?
Well, the only comment I was going to make is the first responder, at least as I understand it, I mean, ideally that's what you want, the first responder to handle the problem.
Right.
And yet, when it came up, you gave the first time available, which was 20 minutes later. If I'm a parent, I'll wait 20 minutes. If you gave me a time that was maybe in the afternoon, and I'm angry and want to talk to somebody, I'm probably going to go to that first responder. But if that time frame of availability is first one available, and that principal is going to be available that quickly, it's probably never going to the first responder.
You know, that's a fair point. And so as the office staff person, you might instead, as we have on the screen now, offer something in the afternoon instead. And the truth is 10 minutes might not be long enough anyway, because you really do want to get the person to go to the first responder and then only have the principal involved if it's necessary. Good point. Good point. Anyone else before we continue?
One question about the click to add a note. Can the person, the secretary, access that to add the note that she has referred someone to a responder?
Yeah, you sure can. So I can just put in a note concerned about a bus issue. Holbrook talked with her. And so I can then click set, and it will appear down in my notes so the principal can see that that's an issue that's being dealt with. And that can be really useful for the principal, because lots of times principals become uncomfortable with the fact that they know that that whole world is going on out there dealing with management issues, but they don't know what's really happening. And so knowing that that's who's dealing with it can help. And so if the principal is carrying around their iPad or stops in the office and looks at their computer, they can see on the notes what's being handled there. And then if I look at the day view, you can see there's lots and lots of space to put in notes of issues that are being dealt with. Good point. Anyone else?
I just saw a point regarding that, and I said this with notes that that box here can be expanded, yes?
Correct. Correct. So if I go to my day view, you can see that it is much larger, and it will adjust to what you need to place there. Now, the truth is you don't, you know, the objective here isn't to make sure that the principal knows every detail of the small issues that are being dealt with. What the principal really needs to know is an issue, what's happening with an issue that may end up actually coming to him or her. At this point, with the bus issue that Mrs. Lindauer was concerned about, there isn't a reason to believe the principal will have to become involved, but may. And so letting the principal know makes sense. Anyone else? All righty. So, so far what we have looked at in terms of changes on TimeTrack is we have looked at the cleaner view, the better print options. We've looked at auto select and first responders. Now I'd like to take you to an issue that has come up repeatedly with SAM principal teams, and that's a desire to be able to look at data in the school year view rather than the TimeTrack year view. So let's look at this particular principal's calendar. And if we go to general options, you're going to see that general options looks different, and it's a much smaller list of things to deal with. And if I come down to show graphs and reports based on, I have a drop-down menu that gives me two choices. In this case, this principal's TimeTrack year is January to December because he had his data collection in December of last year. And so if I click that particular view, then when I go to his charts, like his progress chart, what I am seeing then is his TimeTrack data starting from the time he did, his data collection was in December. So I begin seeing his TimeTrack data in January, and then you can see it goes through the second semester. He had a break in the summer, and now he started again in August. One of the things we've heard from principals is they'd really like to see it in a school year view. And so right now, the only option they've had is to see it this way, which is their TimeTrack year view. So that also applied and probably more importantly, to charts when you're looking at the principal's work with an individual. So say you look at, and you're working with Mrs. Beavis. In the past, you could only see your historical time that you've spent with her since you first started TimeTrack. And so in this view, we see January through the current date, and it'll go all the way to December 2012, and then it starts over. So that was kind of puzzling because you had principals who had started a new school year, like this one has in August, and they'd say, I'd really like it fresh. I'd like to just see the time I'm spending with her so far this year. So you can do that now. You go to Settings, General Profile, click. You go down to the bottom where it shows Show Graphs and Reports, click. I come down to School Year, click, and I click on Save. Now when I click this gentleman's progress report, it's going to show me his progress just for this school year starting in July. So his first time he was working was in August, and it's going to show me the time and how he is spending his time for this year only. All of his data off to the right is showing me school year 2012-2013 instead of his TimeTrack year. This is particularly helpful now when I look at his time he spent with an individual teacher. Let's pretend that Mrs. Beavis was a teacher who he was concerned about. And he says, you know, I need to really focus on her and help her, help her become a better teacher. And so he doesn't want to let things get by. He's been in school for 3 weeks now, and he wants to look at how much time he spent with Mrs. Beavis. Well, he sees that he's done some walkthrough, about 12 minutes with her, but that's it so far. So you can see that this particular option where you can look at the school year view is really a helpful one for SAM principal teams. I would tell you that, again, to get to it, it's just General Options, and then you use the drop-down menu. Some of you may wonder, wouldn't it be nice if you could look at just a month or two or a couple of months? You can actually do that on TimeTrack right now, but not as easily as this. Eventually, we will add additional time options in this drop-down menu, but this is the first change. In order to look at an individual month, could anyone tell me how you'd currently do that on TimeTrack? Anyone have an idea of how you get to an individual month, say in last year, to see how you spent your time? Let me show you. It's something we say again.
I do not.
Let me show you. It's pretty easy, but it's not something that we spend much time with ever in training. If I go over to File, there's a Graph Wizard and a Report Wizard. If I click on a Graph Wizard, it gives me this option, and I can pick current year and past year times, progression of leadership over time, and I can look at an individual month. I'm in the school year view still, so it's going to limit me that far, but you can access that way. I also can go to Report Wizard, click, and I can pick an individual month from last year. I'll go to April. It will show me just April how I spent my time. So again, to get that, you go to File, Graph Wizard, and Report Wizard. Alrighty. The next thing I want to share with you is how you can tell what browser TimeTrack is being displayed on. Now, I think all of you are aware that TimeTrack is a cloud-based product, and to get to it, you have to use your computer browser. A browser is a device that lets you go onto the Internet and go to one place or another. So Internet Explorer, Firefox, Safari, Chrome are all examples of browsers. To know what browser you're on, if you go up to the upper left-hand corner, you'll find File, Settings, Info, and Help. Under Help, you now see automatically what browser we are using to look at TimeTrack right now. You can see it says Chrome 21. Chrome is by far the best browser to use for TimeTrack. However, one of the improvements we've made in TimeTrack is it is far more user-friendly if the browser you're using is Internet Explorer. That assumes that Internet Explorer browser you're looking at is a modern version. Lots of school districts will use an Internet Explorer that came with the machine. They don't go to the website and update it. The current version of Internet Explorer is 9 or 10, and so you're looking for that if they're using Internet Explorer. If it's an earlier version, that's problematic, and TimeTrack will work, but not really well. You'll run into glitches. And so you really want to make sure your team is using a good browser. Firefox works fine. Chrome works best. Internet Explorer, the newest version, 9, is great. But earlier versions aren't. And so as a coach, you can simply go to the help menu and you'll quickly see how the principal is viewing and how the SAM is viewing TimeTrack. And so if you're having TimeTrack user difficulties when you're at the school, just look and see what browser they're using. Most school districts will let the SAM principal team use Chrome because it really is pretty much glitch-free. Some districts won't. If they won't, then say fine, but you have to update this Internet Explorer you're using from Internet Explorer 6, which is very outdated and very difficult to use. Usually isn't a cost or a significant cost of updating a browser. Chrome is free, and most of them are. So as a coach, this is a helpful tool to be able to use. So again, any questions before we move on? All right. Next thing I want to share with you is yes, go right ahead.
I have a question for down the road. You said on the view, you have a year-to-year.
Yes.
A view that might be helpful is to do a month-by-month, but somehow get them on the same page, if that's ever possible. I know it's a question for Jim. But say I want to look at October, November this coming year. You can do it in the older form by going to October, then going to November, and printing them out and checking them. But it'd be awful nice as a tool if they were on the same page and I could just glance across and see where the trends are going.
Really a good suggestion, and we'll bring that up with our software person. You know, I've neglected to mention to you that TimeTrack originally started out as an Excel worksheet. Gosh, that was 9 years ago. 5 years ago, we moved from being an Excel worksheet to a software program that was loaded on a computer. To do that, we hired a software engineer who was working full-time for a company in Indiana. And he, on the weekends, would, when he had time, would do work for us. And so it was kind of a hit-or-miss thing, and we slowly improved TimeTrack over time. Now that we are growing as a national organization, we've gone ahead and hired that gentleman. His name is Eric Kramer, and I'll show you his picture here. There's Eric. And now he, as of Monday of this week, is working for us full-time. And so you're going to see a lot of changes in TimeTrack that are going to roll out a lot faster. And I think that's going to be helpful. So we'll go ahead and forward that suggestion to Eric. And I'm glad you brought it up because all the things you're seeing so far are ideas that came from SAM principal teams and coaches. And we want to continue that tradition, if you will, of improving TimeTrack based on the questions or suggestions we get from you and your SAM principal teams. Because the intent here is to make TimeTrack very easy and quick to use and always be the calendar of choice for a team. Because we want this to be as painless and actually as enjoyable as we can make it for the SAM principal team. And so please share those suggestions for us. We're really growing as a national organization, and we'll almost double in size this year. And as we grow, we want to make sure that the quality increases, doesn't just stay the same, because we want to make that be a good experience for the teams we work with. Anyone else before we move on? All righty. Next thing I want to share with you deals with reconciling events. You've always been able to reconcile an event. So let's say the SAM principal is having their daily meeting right now. They would look at what happened yesterday. And the SAM principal would talk through each of the events and what actually occurred. In the past, you've been able to reconcile an event. the SAM principal might, or the SAM might ask the principal, for this walkthrough, did you really spend the hour and 15 minutes that I see here? And the principal might say, no, I really only spent about 45 minutes. Well, you've always been able then to change at the bottom where it says instruction amount. I can put 45. I can tell TimeTrack this is minutes, and I can push reconcile. And it would split the walkthrough between the walkthrough that was instructional and then the general management that occurred. So that reconcile button has been a really useful tool. Well, we've now added that on the management events as well. And so I am going to pick a management event, let's say this building management. And the SAM principal, the SAM might ask the principal, how much time did you really spend on this conversation with the custodian? And you might say, well, it was just about 15 minutes. So I can change this to 15 instead of 30, change it to minutes, and click reconcile. Now it asks me, well, what'd you do with the rest of the time? Well, I was doing student supervision in Mrs. Stevens' room, or I was doing walkthrough. And then if you click set, it will divide that into some time that was instructional and the balance, which was management. So the reconciling an event is an important change for us in terms of being able to reconcile a management event as well as an instructional event. Here's a, let me see if I can change this. Here's another example of that same thing. Change this back to management. Update. The SAM might ask the principal during car duty yesterday, did you do anything that was instructional? And the principal might say, yeah, I ran into Mrs. Lindauer, and she was really concerned about her son's work in math this year. So we talked a bit about what we should do about that. Well, there's some low-hanging fruit here. You hope the SAM will then jump to the fact that the SAM needs to schedule some time with a teacher or someone else. So the SAM might say, what follow-up do we need to do with that? And so you might do some scheduling as a result of that. But a good SAM would then also say, so how much time did you spend with Mrs. Lindauer? Well, about 15 minutes. And so then the SAM can open up car duty and change it so that instead of it being 45 minutes, I'm going to make it, I'm going to say it's 75% was car duty. And the balance was talking with the parent, and then set. And then so that gives the principal some credit for the instructional work that he did during that time instead of just being management work. So reconciling events is important, and it's one that as a coach you want to look for. You want to make sure when you look at a calendar that you have evidence that reconciling is taking place, and you can sure see it in this calendar. You can see car duty, the instructional part versus the management part, walkthrough, and then a general management below. That's evidence that they're reconciling and actually making it real as to what happened on the days that they have been meeting and tracking their time. So reconciling event is a change on TimeTrack. Questions or comments before we continue? All righty. The next thing I want to share with you is conflicting events. On Thursday, you see a conflicting event. This is something we've allowed for some time on TimeTrack where you could schedule more than one event at the same time. Here you have a kindergarten program that the principal wants to go to, but you also have a third grade team meeting the principal wants to go to. So they're both scheduled. So then on Friday, during the SAM meeting, Sam's going to say, which one did you go to? Well, the principal said, you know, I really intended to go to that K program, but I didn't. I really went to the third grade team meeting. In the past, that would mean opening up the K program thing and deleting it, opening up the third grade team meeting, and then updating it so it would count. Because TimeTrack can only count one thing at a time. It can't count two things for the same time period. That's why that shows up in red. Now, there's an easier way to deal with a conflicting event when you're reconciling it. If in fact, I went to the third grade team meeting instead of the kindergarten program, I can double-click that. And up at the top of the event box, you see a box that says, make this event the primary. If I click that, it tells TimeTrack to count the third grade team meeting and not count the kindergarten program. If it were the reverse, I went to the kindergarten program, I can open it up. I can tell TimeTrack to make it the primary, and it will count that rather than the third grade meeting. So dealing with conflicting events is easier now, and it's just that single button, and you'll find it on every event. Make this event primary. Even if it's not conflicting now, it will be there in case you do schedule a conflicting event. So that's another change in TimeTrack, and I will take you off mute to see if anybody has any comments or questions. Anyone at all? All right. Next thing I want to share with you is a change we've made in repeating events. If I'm doing an event, if I go to the repeat button up at the top of the event box, and if I click weekly, I now get a very different view. In the past, the default, if you were going to repeat an event, was the end of the school year. Now the default, what it's automatically set for, is 1 month after this event. So if I'm scheduling walkthroughs and I'm doing them Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, I then, as a SAM principal team, have to decide how long am I going to schedule that out into the future. I can schedule it in terms of an easy way of 1 month, 3 months, 6 months, or 9 months, or I can pick a particular date and I can type the date in. The reason we've done this is we found a lot of people would schedule an event and it would go all the way to the end of the TimeTrack year, and it really didn't make any sense because they were showing a scheduled event at a time that they were on vacation. What we're trying to do here is get principal teams to be a little more thoughtful about their scheduling, particularly when they're doing a repeating event. Also, if you're scheduling a repeating event just for 1 month after this event, it is going to be much faster in terms of TimeTrack's ability to actually include it on the calendar. So, to do a repeating event, it works just like you've always done. You open up or start the event box, you go to the repeat button, you click on weekly, and you tell it when you would like. The big difference here is the default is 1 month instead of the end of the school year, and you have some easy options to pick rather than putting in a date. If you wish to put in a date, you still may. Questions or comments about using repeating events? All right. The next change I want to share with you is descriptor examples. One of the things we've found in working with SAM principal teams around the country is oftentimes the team and sometimes the coach struggles as to what the descriptors really mean. So we've built into TimeTrack a quick way to find out. If I go to Information, at the top, the tabs, File, Settings, Info, Help. If I go to Info, I have now two choices, instructional descriptors and management descriptors that weren't there before. If I click on instructional descriptors, I get a very different format. I get first a quick definition in the left-hand column. Student supervision, principal assists while teacher is teaching students. Then in the next column, I get specific examples. Principal uses proximity to redirect students. Principal verbally redirects a student so he pays attention. Principal provides a pencil for a student, materials, etc. Then in the third column, I have notes for the SAM and principal. Student supervision also allows the principal to better understand what is happening in a classroom. It allows the principal to both observe and assist. So for each of the instructional descriptors, it's this same format. A quick one-sentence definition. Celebration. Principal gives a celebratory feedback to individual about curriculum, instruction, or assessment. Then a series of examples, and then some specific information or advice to the SAM or the principal. In this case, many SAMs will ask the principal to identify at least one person he or she was impressed with after a walkthrough. The SAM then schedules the principal for a celebration meeting with the person identified. So this is built in now to TimeTrack, and to get to it, you use the tabs at the top, File, Settings, Info, Help, in this case, Info, and then you go to what you want to see. I can also see management descriptors, and they are presented in the same fashion. Now, eventually, now that we have a full-time software engineer working with us, we will have a system where you will be able to access those definitions from the event box. Right now, if I pick instruction and then pick decision-making groups and committees, I don't have my definition right there. Eventually, we'll have a little box just to the right there, and you can click, and it will tell you what that particular descriptor means. So you don't have to go to the top, help, info, and get to the descriptors that way. The other thing I neglected to mention earlier is one of the things our software engineer is working on right now is email functionality. And so eventually, when you schedule a meeting, you will be able to click and send an email directly from TimeTrack reminding these people or letting them know of the meeting with the principal. The next thing I want to share with you is importing, and one of you, I think Mary mentioned, or maybe even Gail, that that might be a really helpful thing for principals. And I think I said yes, but I have a cautionary tale. To import from another calendar system, so if you wanted to import data, calendar events from Outlook or from Apple, you can do this, and it's actually not all that hard. You go to the top, you go to File, and then Settings, and then you drop down to Manual Calendar Import Export. CSV is the format that any PC would be using, so for Outlook. iCal is the format for Apple, so you pick which it is. Then you say whether you wish to import from iCal to TimeTrack or whether you wish to export from TimeTrack to iCal. So let's say I want to import. It will then tell me some directions below about how to do this. Now I have to tell you that that's pretty daunting looking at those directions, so we have made it a little bit easier. The way you do this is you go to Sam's Connect, you go to Support, and the Support's right next to the Contact Us button. You click, and my computer froze up, but here we go. And then you, in the search box, type import. And here you will have a series of directions on how to import different calendars. And so let's say I want to import Outlook 2010. It will give you a step-by-step set of directions that Jim Mercer put together for us. Now, you will see that he says the difficulty is easy. And I have to tell you that I think it might be easy for Jim, but it was kind of hard for me. When I say hard, it's time-consuming. You have to go through this step-by-step, and if you follow it, it will work just fine. So it is now possible to manually import anything from your Outlook calendar onto your TimeTrack calendar, anything from an Apple calendar to your TimeTrack calendar, anything from a Google calendar to your TimeTrack calendar. But here's the caution. The way this works, when I enter an event on an Outlook calendar, I will pull up an Outlook calendar now. Maybe. Open up. Saying, I don't want to. Okay. On an Outlook calendar, when I enter something, and let's see, if I enter an event like TimeTrack, it doesn't give me options like, is this instruction or management? And so as a result, when I import something from this calendar, I end up with some interesting challenges, and I'll show you why. When let's see, let me pull out of here. I'll go back to Sam's Connect and back to a TimeTrack calendar now. So if I am importing my things from Outlook to this particular calendar, I can do it, and it'll take me just about 5 minutes to be able to do it. So once a week, I can import things from my Outlook calendar. But when they come to my TimeTrack calendar, they're all going to appear like this third grade meeting. in red. Why? Because TimeTrack doesn't been told yet whether it's instructional or management or personal or what the descriptor is. So if you import things from another calendar system, what you end up happening is you'll have tons of these red events. It's going to require the SAM or the principal to take the time to open up the event and tell TimeTrack what the heck it is. I would suggest to you, and one of the reasons we're investing so much resource in making TimeTrack easier and more comfortable to use, I would suggest that you do what most of our large districts are doing. Tell your SAM principal, make TimeTrack your primary calendar. Monitor your Outlook or your iCal calendar once a day. Have your SAM take a look and see if anything new has been added. If it is, then manually just go to your TimeTrack calendar, open up the event box, and add it. It's, in fact, a lot faster than dealing with the import piece where you have to then go in and open up each of the individual calendar items. So the purpose of all this is to tell you, yes, you can now import your events from another calendar system, whether an Apple or whether a Microsoft. However, in doing that, you do run into some barriers because it does take quite a bit of time to go in and tell TimeTrack what all those things are. Any questions or comments before we move on? You're a quiet group.
But we're happy.
Ooh, well, I like that. I like that. The last thing I want to share with you is an improvement that's been made on TimeTrack that allows you to access information about baseline data collection or any collection after that. If I go to Settings up at the top, I get a drop-down menu. If I come down to Time Task Analysis, it shows me, and this was something we added last year, the time task or baseline data for this particular principal. And when this principal has his year later data, it will appear in a new column to the right of his baseline. And this chart then will then have 2 data points, so then it will actually, graph for you. And so 5 years from now, he'll have 5 years of data he can look at. What we've heard from SAM principal teams is they'd like to see more detail. So we've built that in. If I click up to the right, do you see where the date is, where it says December of 2011? If I put my cursor over it, you see a line appear underneath it. If I click it, it gives me this principal's data Monday through Friday during his shadowing week. If I want to make it bigger, I just go up to the wrench, click, and I can use the zoom feature to make it bigger so it's easier to see. Okay. If I wish to see, if I want to make it smaller, I do it the same way. I click on the wrench, and I take us down to 100% or lower. I'll go back to 100. If I go to the bottom of the chart, you see the interaction results, and it lights up. If I click it, it will show me this principal's interaction results for his data collection. So what this does for us now, and again to get to it, I go to Settings, down to Time Task Analysis, click, and then to open it up so I get more detail, I go to the top of the percentage column where it says when the data was collected. This was December of 2011. Click, and it will give me a more detailed view of the baseline data. So this is a change in TimeTrack that is in place right now. Now, many of you might wonder how long it's going to be before we see all of this information on calendars. And so I'm going to see if Jim Mercer is with us right now, and let's see if he can tell us. Jim, is this going to take months before every principal has this on their calendar? We have principals in, 17 states?
No, actually, the upgrade was completed last night. So
you're telling me that every one of the principals, their calendars, will do all this right now?
Yes.
Hey, that's pretty cool. Now, Jim, when we were talking just a minute ago about the fact that you can get to your time task analysis data, when will that all be loaded in?
We're bringing all that data in over the next week.
So a week from now or so, you think that everybody will have all of their time task analysis data, even if they've been doing SAM work for the last 6 years?
Yep.
Hey, that's pretty cool. Well, during our session today, I'm going to take me off mute so we don't have a echo here. There we go. During our session today, we've covered quite a few things. We looked at the cleaner version of TimeTrack, the better print options. We looked at auto-select and first responders. We did the role play with Betty. We looked at the school year view versus the TimeTrack year view. We looked at how you find what your browser is. We looked at how you can reconcile both management and instructional events. We looked at the repeating events and how that's changed, how conflicting events have changed, how the examples for descriptors are built in, how to import both from an Apple product or from a PC product. And we looked at time task analysis and how you get to your data. The important piece here is this is a tool that a SAM principal team uses, and you as a coach help the team do that. Making it real is real important for us because it's not just a matter of getting into the green. That's a step, though, making sure you schedule at or above goal each day, as this principal does. But you also want to make sure it's real. That's the purpose of TimeTrack, and you as a coach play an important role. I mentioned earlier, I really don't think that this would work without you, and I believe that sincerely, and I sincerely appreciate the work that you do with SAM principal teams. I appreciate that you took some time today to learn how to use the new TimeTrack, and I will ask again, anyone have anything else to say before we finish up today? And Becky Ryder, I see you're online with us right now.
Yeah.
How are you, Becky? Becky, are you with us? She's showing online, but I'm not hearing her. I want to thank everyone for participating today. It has been a... Go right ahead.
Sorry about that, Mark. Time change. Totally forgot that you guys are in a different time zone. Was all set to go on my time. Sorry about that.
Not a problem. Not a problem. We're doing another one at 1 o'clock Eastern and another one at 4 o'clock Eastern. And I want to thank everybody for participating today. Anybody else have any comments for the good of the order before we close up?
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Hey, you bet. Hey, thank you. Take care, everyone.
You too. Bye.